All right, for more on this story now, Zimbabwe's ambassador to South Africa, that's David Hamadzripi, joins us in studio now to talk us through the situation in his country. Ambassador, thank you very much for your time. Perhaps let's look at each other and have this conversation. It's one that is not a laughing matter. People are in distress in areas like Chimanimani. Paint us a picture of what Zimbabwe is going through right now.
Thank you. Good morning for having me this morning. The situation on the ground is desperate, but it is also a situation that is improving as we see teams that have been mobilized by the government, teams mobilized by the private sector, by NGOs, by all associations, churches, individuals to go and help. The situation is desperate. You have individuals, families that have lost everything and who are in need of shelter, who are in need of clothing, who are in need of food. And this is the situation that we have on the ground.
Perhaps let's talk about the death toll. 100 people are reported to have died in Zimbabwe. 500 others are still missing. There is this race against time by rescuers to try and reach them, those that are still missing. Do you expect this death toll to rise?
The death toll is expected to rise. The reports we have received so far, in fact, according to UN figures, as of yesterday, you had 104 deaths recorded. But there is also information that some bodies are actually being washed down the rivers, this new ocean that has in fact been created by the floods, washing bodies down from Zimbabwe into Mozambique. Some figures that are being mentioned, about 300 bodies might have been washed from Zimbabwe into Mozambique. So we may not look at not less than 500 people who may have perished in this disaster.
Before we talk about the assistance that Zimbabwe is seeking from its neighbors, the President Emmerson Mnangagwa, visited the area of Chimanimani yesterday. Talk to us what he found there.
The President visited the area yesterday, and what he found was again a scene of devastation, a scene where you are also having teams from the government, teams from various organizations, international organizations, national organizations, working hard to provide relief and to support those who are in need. He visited the area together with a team from the government, and he has conveyed the message that government is doing everything it can with support from others within the country and from outside the country to provide relief. But beyond the immediate relief, the President has also spoken about what will need to be done in the future. You need to rehabilitate the infrastructure that has been destroyed. You need to provide a more sustainable type of housing. So already the planning has started in terms of how to ensure that we may be able to withstand any such future natural disasters.
We know Zimbabwe's financial situation. Do you think the government there is capable of putting into place these plans that you're talking about, that the President Emmerson Mnangagwa and his government plan to do for the people of Zimbabwe?
The disaster that we face is beyond the capacity of, be it the government of Zimbabwe or even the governments of other countries that have been affected. And we know from other areas where disasters of a similar magnitude have occurred that national governments, no matter how well capacitated they may be and how much experienced they may be, they are not on their own able to deal with such situations. And certainly the government of Zimbabwe is taking the lead, which is the natural thing to do, but also coordinating and mobilizing the necessary national, regional and international support to deal with this situation. The government has already provided $50 million in immediate support for what needs to be done presently, we are going to be issuing an international appeal for support to this particular situation, catastrophe that we are facing. But we are also very happy that we have already had immediate responses from Zimbabwean nationals in Zimbabwe and abroad. We have had support from other countries, Tanzania, United Arab Emirates. We are in discussion with South African government. We have already communicated informally at the moment some of the immediate needs that we have, and we are aware that the South African government is in fact considering the nature, the character and size of support that they are going to give to us.
And I was about to actually come to that particular point that you address, your immediate neighbor, South Africa here. The president spoke earlier this week, the president of South Africa that is, that the defense force had already been dispatched to Mozambique. I want to know from you, is it also present in Zimbabwe? We see the humanitarian assistance it is providing in Mozambique. In Zimbabwe, are they present there? And what kind of assistance are you looking for specifically from South Africa?
To my knowledge, the South African National Defence Forces are not present in Zimbabwe at the moment. But the type of support that we have been asking, or that we are contemplating asking South African government for, is partly to improve our access to some of the areas that we need to access at the moment, which are inaccessible because bridges have been washed away. So we are looking at perhaps some temporary structures that would enable us to access some of those areas.
Road infrastructure, sorry.
Road infrastructure, that is, yes. We certainly would be looking to South Africa to support us in terms of transportation to reach some of those areas that we have not been able to reach. But as I said, my government is finalizing the request that we would like to make to the South African government, because as you can understand, we needed to get teams on the ground to assess some of the needs that we have and to assess the damage that might have been caused, and then the nature of the support that we will be asking for.
Ambassador, just as a final point, we know that the area of Chimanimani was the hardest hit because it appears that's where this cyclone Idai made landfall. But what are the other areas that have been affected by this cyclone?
You have had areas also in Manicaland province that have been affected, areas in Mutasa, but you have areas beyond Manicaland, in Masvingo, in Bikita, for instance. In Gutu, we are informed of schools and houses that have been destroyed. You go to areas like Buhera as well. There are reports of effects of the cyclone in terms of flooding and destruction of infrastructure. So there is going to be a lot of reconstruction work that will need to be done, and that is why also government is looking at not just the immediate, but also looking at the medium to long-term needs in order to address this catastrophe.
So we thank you indeed for having made the time. You wanted to add one final point, perhaps?
Yes, please. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to be here this morning to talk about the disaster that has befallen our country and to express appreciation to you, ENCA and other media houses for publicizing this situation that we are facing, and also for helping us to mobilize support from within South Africa and beyond in support of these victims of this natural disaster. But I cannot fail also to join South Africans today in celebrating and commemorating Human Rights Day. We do recall the tragic events that took place 59 years ago in Sharpeville, but we see the road that South Africa has traveled since then, and today is also just not commemoration but celebration of what we have been able to achieve, but also dedication to continue to address these human rights issues in all their dimensions. Thank you very much.
Thanks indeed, sir, for your time. I could ask you many questions in relation to human rights issues in relation to your country, but perhaps we'll leave that for another day. That's Zimbabwe's ambassador to South Africa, Mr. David Hamadziripi.